Hello and welcome to the Abnormal News Network. I'm your host, Chet Chetland. Local Pleasantville man Rusty Red has been apprehended by police after reports of a potential assault have been called in at the Junkyard Pub. Cocaine and methamphetamines were found on his body during the arrest. Now, police have recently released his criminal record, which included 6 previous arrests, a consecutive of 8 months in jail time, 2 separate instances of public exhibition, and a restraining order from his ex-wife, Scarlet Red, who had this to say when interviewed about Rusty's latest arrest.
I say he deserved it,
For an interview on Rusty's broken mind, we have here with us a renowned behaviorist, Michael Szabo. Take it away, Michael. Now, Rusty is a very interesting case. As you can tell by his multiple previous arrests, Rusty has clearly shown that his behaviors tend to skew towards his own self-indulgence and pleasure, with almost no regard for how that affects others around him. Remorse and empathy are emotions that often keep our behaviors in line with what is socially and morally appropriate. Rusty, on the other hand, shows a clear lack of empathy and remorse, which means that he has been conditioned to focus on things that give him pleasure with almost no regard as to how that affects others. Now, this is what we would call an antisocial personality disorder. Thanks, Michael. Coming up, we have a 10-minute deep dive going into this man's fascinating personality. So sit back and enjoy. With ANN, I'm Chet Chetland, signing off.
Coming up.
Let's do it.
I want you to get excited about your life.
Here we go, in 10.
Stand by, camera 6.
If it's happening now, we're going to deal with it now.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
This is going to be a changing day in your life.
Man, if you want to get by in life, you gotta be one step ahead. That's me. I don't give a who's in my way as long as I get done what's need to be done. My childhood was rough. No one's looking out for me. I was kicked out at 12. Why should I look out for someone else?
Rusty, tell the good folks at home a bit about why you're here.
It's like I always say, them lawmen, them piggies they are, they're lucky I don't give them a beat down.
Don't tell me who they are. I want to know what Rusty Red is doing right here, right now.
What do you mean? I'm here because of them.
Don't tell me who they are. I want to know what Rusty's doing here.
What?
What's that you're doing?
I'm scratching my beard. Now what the are they laughing at? Weirdos getting off to this kind of setup? Look at me!
We don't swear here.
I'll let you in on a little secret, Doctor. Rules are just suggestions, and I can talk however the I want.
Now try to imagine that you are Dr. Phil sitting here talking to Rusty. What would you think of him?
Well, I'd think, what a handsome, charming man. Be careful, though, he looks crazy.
Rusty, you are still not taking responsibility.
I don't like how you're trying to challenge me. You've yeared your last haw, cowboy.
Keeping Rusty at attention and in the moment sure made him angry. It may be that continuing to call out his narcissistic behavior may begin to make him more aware of himself. Rusty has a long way to go, but with intensive and frustrating therapy, Rusty may be able to turn a new leaf. Find out what happens next on a whole new episode of Dr. Phil.
Up next on the Abnormal News Network, we sit down with Scarlet Red, Rusty's ex-wife, who gives us some insight about this felon's thoughts. Why do you think Rusty acts the way he does?
I mean, he had a rough go. He was kicked out at age 12, and I think being alone so young, he had to learn to fend for himself. He probably got in a lot of tumbles, and now that he's big and strong, he thinks he always has to be that way or else he'll get taken advantage of again. I think he struggles to think about the world the way that most people do. He can't think of anyone but himself. He feels like this big loner man.
Sometimes people will organize their world into unsaid rules called schemas. The treatment for this is schema therapy, which teaches clients to question and reevaluate the automatic judgments they make. Do you think Rusty would benefit from this?
Yeah, I'll bet. It could also help with his drinking and drug use. He's such a happy person when he's sober, but when he gets drunk, he just starts getting mad and fighting people. I think maybe sometimes he doesn't even know that he has to do it, but he does it as some sort of self-medication, or like it's gonna be better next time. Although he's such a wily man, I don't know how you get him to even continue therapy if not for incarceration.
Can you describe his behavior while you were married to him?
Yeah, he was real rough around the edges. He could be the sweetest person you ever met or a twisted effing psychopath, usually dependent on whether he was sober or not. He threatened me several times, enough so that I had to get restraining order on him, although it didn't stop him from visiting me once anyways. Some days he'd go out and he'd spend hundreds of dollars, and I don't know where he's getting that money from. And while he's doing that, he's not even eating or nothing. I don't think he feels empathy for anyone. I think he's a sociopath and a narcissist, and someone has to go in and tell him how normal people are thinking.
Luckily, Mrs. Red, we've inquired about cognitive behavioral therapy for him at Pleasantville Counseling Clinic. It is not a full treatment plan, but it could have a small impact on teaching him empathy, and that his schemas, which might have been good for him as a kid, are now maladaptive.
I think that'd be real good.
Pleasantville Abnormal News Network reminds you to be on the lookout for Rusty Red, who is potentially dangerous.
Now, on the next segment of Normal News, we have Dr. Pink on the line providing us further insight on what's really going on.
I think Rusty comes from a past that's played a role in the person he has become today. In fact, after meeting with his employer Rufus from Iceberg Oil and Gas, I was able to gather a better understanding of Rusty. His employer described him to be toxic and troubling. In fact, he was fired from bringing illicit drugs and alcohol along with pornography and other contraband onto the campsite. He was said to have bribed co-workers to keep him from getting caught. After he was eventually found out, it also came out that he was involved in numerous counts of sexual misconduct. This alludes to not only some problems with addiction, which from a sociocultural perspective explains Rusty's unemployment, and in terms of treatment, I would recommend perhaps self-help programs, Alcoholics, or even Narcotics Anonymous, as well as some issues in his personality that show signs of antisocial, as can be seen through his unlawful behaviors and his extermination and even deception and reckless behavior, along with complete irresponsibility, leads me to believe that there was early trauma in his life and some issues in his relationships that caused instability in his life now. And that is all. Thank you.
Welcome back to Abnormal News. I am your co-host Manveer, and today I will be providing you with more information in regards to Rusty Red's case. I have gotten in contact with his ex-wife, Scarlett Red, who was entangled with the patient for nearly 2 years. And here we have Scarlett Red providing us her information on Rusty Red. Thank you, Abnormal News, for this opportunity to expose Rusty Red. Just a fair warning, I have nothing but negative things to say about this horrible man. Due to his constant threats towards me, I had issued a restraining order against him. I cannot believe I loved that man. He constantly stole money from me and was constantly getting in trouble with work and the law. He would lie and apologize over and over and over again and still misbehave. Seems pretty antisocial to me. Always had unlawful behaviors, aggression, and extreme irresponsibility with work or finance. I was talking to someone to get him help. I tried to take him to places that provided social skills training or even helped him foster healthy relationships, but that clearly didn't provide any help. He was always so sweet and charismatic when sober, and if not sober, he was dark, violent, vicious. I still have bruises all over my body and marks that I will never forget about. He was truly narcissistic. He needs self-help programs, Alcoholic Anonymous or Narcotic Anonymous. I hope you guys can get to the bottom of this case.
My name is Dr. Sterling. I work at the Pleasantville Medical Clinic. I was asked to consult on the medical records for my patient Rusty Red. Mr. Red is a 50-year-old male weighing 135 pounds. Blood tests were performed on Mr. Red, indicating higher than normal liver proteins and signs of advanced cirrhosis. These could be explained by Mr. Red's extensive alcohol consumption. Mr. Red is also a regular smoker, which could explain his high blood pressure and signs of stress on his lungs. An fMRI was performed on Mr. Red, which showed a smaller than normal amygdala, depressed activity in the prefrontal cortex, and more than normal activity in the basal ganglia. These abnormalities in Rusty's brain could be an indicator for antisocial personality disorder. People with antisocial personality disorder have been shown to have these and similar abnormalities.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Bon Jovi with the Pleasantville Neurology Center. Today we will be taking a look at the charts of Rusty Red. Before we begin, I would like to remind everyone to not tell anyone that I'm telling you this, as I'm definitely breaking patient confidentiality and my license will surely be revoked. We gave Rusty an fMRI to measure the activity and blood flow in his brain. After observing the findings, a few abnormalities presented themselves, including a hyperactive basal ganglia as well as depressed activity in the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is linked with decision-making, complex cognitions and moderating social behavior. With Rusty's low activity in this region, a strong correlation can be made to his antisocial personality and history of deviance, including behavior such as violence, impulsivity and exhibitionism. To many people, the basal ganglia may be known for its role in controlling voluntary movements. However, it has many functions, including links to the learning of behaviors as well as a connection to the mesolimbic system, aka the reward pathway. A hyperactive basal ganglia has been tied to an overactive release of dopamine. This fact, paired with the basal ganglia's role in learning, can lead to the reinforcement of drug-taking behaviors, creating a cycle that is very difficult to break free of. In terms of neuroscience treatments for Rusty, the options are varying. His antisocial and other personality disorders lack any significant treatments. Though some medical drugs can be used for certain conditions of personality disorders such as anxiety and depression, Rusty shows no signs of these disorders. However, his drug addictions do have many proven methods for treatment, such as detoxification, antagonistic drugs, as well as drug maintenance therapy. Though Rusty's condition may be serious, with knowledge of some of the neurological underpinnings that are influencing this, as well as some available and effective treatment options, Rusty's health may be able to turn a corner, and he could one day become a healthy member of society. Thank you for listening, and once again, please keep this information on the down low. My career is at stake.
Welcome back to Positive Vibes Only. I'm your host, Positive Polly. Here on our YouTube channel, we diagnose case studies of individuals. Today, we're talking about Rusty Red. Rusty, I saw on an episode of the Abnormal News Network, as well as an episode of Dr. Phil. Some of the diagnoses I think were overlooked on those two would be exhibitionism, as well as oppositional defiant disorder. Now, Rusty was caught with public exhibitionism twice, once in 1999, once in 2008. For those of you that don't know, public exhibitionism is exposing yourself. Cool, Rusty. He's definitely in some need of some sexual education. Oppositional defiant disorder. Rusty loses his temper often and quickly. He's easily annoyed. He hates authority, argues with them all the time. He's resentful, and he blames others. Now, we got some information from Rufus, who was a former employer of Rusty. Rusty is supposedly toxic and troubling. It sure sounds like it. He was caught selling illegal drugs, alcohol, and porn on the job. Come on, Rusty. Come on. We also talked to Marvin, who is the pub owner of the bar that Rusty's been going to for 25 years. He said when Rusty was younger, he used to be humbled. He used to want to be a big-time country star. Now, he's just a hotshot. Rusty is in some desperate need of getting back to that passion, finding some country music again, taking another swing at it, because he is in some deep trouble. If you were interested in watching the Abnormal News Network or Dr. Phil, link is in the description. Please like, share, and subscribe to this video. Thanks for watching. Positive Polly, out.